All right, welcome back everyone to another exciting episode of AI Data Mastery. I'm excited today, but first and foremost, let me just quick thank you to our sponsors, Evolve with AI, as well as Data Accelerator. I'm your host, Jason Renno, for those of you first time listening or just happen to forget. And then I'm extremely excited about our guest today. Paul Davison is literally building the future of surgery at Lamina Surgical. Think about less thermal damage, better visualization, and a path towards AI assisted decision support in the OR. So I don't want to misrepresent or, not speak about the business inappropriately or incorrectly, I should say. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you, Jason. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited about the future and what AI and using data with strong statistical support can do for my business, and partnering with people like you to optimize business to business opportunities and transactions. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So first and foremost, let's start off for those listening that have not heard of it's Lamnia Surgical, correct?
Lamina.
Lamina.
Yeah,
Okay, my
yeah.
apologies. I should have
Which
asked
is
that.
it's essentially the Latin word for the edge of a leaf or a blade edge, and one of our products is a surgical blade.
Yeah, no, I
So
remember
that's
that. Okay, so Lamina Surgical. So
yeah.
let's get right to it. What problem is Lamina Surgical solving in the operating room right now?
There are safety and decision-making challenges in surgery that we're addressing. So in terms of, there's two large segments in surgery. You have minimally invasive robotics. So that is surgery on endoscopic or laparoscopic instruments with a camera. There's a local light. You're using a robotic system, or a surgeon is managing the instruments through portholes. That's two-thirds of all surgery in the United States. Outside the US, it's a smaller amount. In the US, a third of all surgery is open surgery, where you essentially have a scalpel to do a skin dissection. You use a Bovie electrosurgical handpiece to access to cancer, or to access an implant that needs to be, changed out, or create a pocket for or access for a orthopedic implant. So that's deliver a baby, cesarean section. So open surgery is a third of all surgery, growing at 10% a year, and it hasn't changed much in many, many decades. Essentially, you use a scalpel for access on the skin, and you use an electrosurgery handpiece for dissection and bleed control beneath the skin. So what we're doing is we're creating an advanced version of the blade, which you could also use on skin. So you use one device, skin to surgical site. We're coupling that with a imaging system to provide visualization, magnification in the surgical site, at the surgical site. Whereas currently that level of visualization is only possible in laparoscopic surgery because you have a camera present, you're operating on a monitor or looking at a monitor.
Yeah, operating
Um,
arms, right?
yep. And so we're essentially providing some direct visualization. We also have some imaging modes to look at blood flow, bacteria, and also some recognition features to identify um, uh, different types of observations in live surgery. And then we're going to couple that with AI machine learning software in our imaging system, in our probe, to make an open surgery system. The problem we're really solving here is in traditional surgery, bovies are very hot. There are safety issues with arcing to ancillary instruments in the field. There's smoke generation. Patients are burned. The healing is difficult, and excessive amount of narcotics need to be prescribed. Visualization is bad because of the smoke. So we're changing that with our blade that has a local light. You can see what you're doing in a much better way instead of just relying on a headlamp or the overhead light. Our blade has a low thermal spread, so patients are going to heal better, heal quicker, heal stronger, require less narcotics. And you can also use the device on skin, so you don't have to, set up the scalpel, pass the scalpel, and then use the Bovie subcutaneously or beneath the skin. So it's a workflow
Uh,
time savings improvement. And then for some surgeries, it's going to be very beneficial to use our imaging system to locally look at what is happening with blood flow and bacteria and generate data and rectify that data with, say, information in the cloud, and then provide some surgical assist relative to what they're seeing. So that's just not out there right now. This is the first to market complete system where we would use our electrosurgical handpiece as a controller for this. So that's a company and a product alone.
gotcha.
And then connecting that to imaging and data collection and surgical inferencing or surgical assist is really where we have a really a massive opportunity.
And when you say surgical assist, we talked about this a little bit on the pre-call. You're talking about an AI type of tool that can recognize a situation, visually, or obviously being, I guess, maybe dictated by a doctor or something, reference years, if not infinite amounts of data, and then help make a decision. So instead of a surgery or a doctor, having to take 5 to 10 minutes to think about or confer with other doctors or gather information or data about a situation to make a decision, he can literally have that data, have that information, probably more than he would have had in the past, and be able to make that decision in 30 to 60 seconds versus maybe 30 to 60 minutes in some cases. And that could be the matter of life or death.
Yeah, imagine a procedure such as wound care, which has a 30% failure rate. There's 2 million hospital-based surgeries annually. And physicians are essentially debriding wounds. They're pressure wounds, diabetic foot ulcers that don't heal. These patients, if that procedure doesn't go well, end up having an amputation. So to avoid that, they debride these wounds, and the failure rate is caused from necrosis or lack of blood flow to the local area or bacterial biofilms being present. So if there is necrosis or bacteria biofilm present still after the debridement, likely outcome is surgical failure, reoperation. This is a very expensive problem. It's about a $51 billion problem annually to have this 30% failure rate. So we are, have a great opportunity in that space for debridement, visualization of blood flow, and then addressing and looking at biofilms and comparing what is happening real time in surgery to what is displayed through our, machine learning AI scenarios longer term. So we're starting with the blade. We're launching, an imager, and then we're going to launch the AI surgeon assist software. That's our product cadence, and ultimately this will be a surgical system.
Gotcha. Like you're saying, quote, kind of from the proverbial end to end, correct?
Yeah. So very excited about it, and I
And
led the
what stages
development
are you
of.
at in this? What stages are you at in the product cadence?
We're in the FDA process for developing devices. And this is a Class II device system. in terms of FDA categorization. We're in the concept feasibility phase. So you essentially prove the device functionality to user inputs. You start to generate documentation to support a design history file for the product and the system, which ultimately will be used to submit a 510K. And 510Ks are what are used for Class II devices to obtain FDA clearance to market a device or a system. So we are in that first phase. We're currently funded by surgeons and some other individuals, and we're building the company in that sense through people that are familiar with some devices I've invented in the past. I led the development of the plasma blade, which was acquired by Medtronic, and that's a highly successful, widely successful device that's used in putting in and taking out pacemakers, breast oncology surgery, and some other procedures.
Gotcha.
So I have some deep experience in surgical device space, and have a network of a wonderful team in the San Francisco Bay Area of people that I've worked with at very successful companies that are now part of the large strategics like Stryker, Medtronic, and I've worked for those type of companies early in my career as an engineer as well. So I've been on both sides of this, and really excited to be building Lamina Surgical from the ground up, and solving some really important problems in surgery.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like it. That's remarkable, and thank you for doing it. Um, so, I mean, with FDA approvals and everything else, when is this first the blade, that initial product, expected to go to market or be available?
Yeah, we're planning a commercial launch in 2028, and then we're subsequently launching the imager and software, and then we'll, build upon that, and we'll be implementing, various campaigns to, get awareness out from, essentially a business to business scenario, which is your bailiwick and your wheelhouse and what you're good at, to build awareness about the opportunities in the different surgical specialties, and we will obviously target
Yeah, that was my
areas
next question: is who's
that
the
are
who's
the best fit for the technology. And then what often happens with these types of projects is you have line extensions and offshoot products to really create strong adoption and collateral markets, so to speak. After you establish a beachhead, you essentially iterate your product, you continue to improve it. I'm a big fan of ongoing improvement, and products really never done, and we're going to be a persistent presence with our customers, and continue to improve surgery, and through improving our devices and scaling accordingly.
So you mentioned customers. I mean, obviously, it's not just any doctor that's going to need these products. Who specifically is your ideal client, or the ideal doctor or company that would be purchasing this initial product?
Well, ideally, it's one that wants to improve patient outcomes, improve their workflow, and do it in a way that economically it's going to improve the finances of their hospital.
No, so what I meant is, like, are you trying to sell it to hospitals, or is it plastic surgeons? Is it ear, nose, and throat doctors? Like, is there a specific, within the medical field, let's just say, is there a specific niche carved out that you'll be targeting to build relationships with and ultimately sell the product to?
Yeah, that's a a probably one of our largest opportunities is that when I talked about open surgery being a third of all surgeries in the US, that's 35 million procedures every year. And just about every single one of them uses a scalpel and an electrosurgical bovie. So whether you're taking out a tonsil or you're doing a craniotomy and head and neck surgery, a thyroid surgery, you work your way from head to toe, putting in a pacemaker, delivering a baby by cesarean section, a total hip, a total knee, a bunion, every, from
Yeah,
head to
there's
toe,
35 million opportunities out there
that's
every
right.
year.
It's a real large market, $11 billion, and but that could be segmented into specific areas that have greater needs and greater failure rates in surgeries, and where maybe burning and smoke or damage to implants or um, accessory instruments is a larger issue. So we'll prioritize
I was going to say there's probably some
our
sort of
market
priority.
entries based on like clinical need, economic opportunity, and so we have opportunities from neurosurgery to otolaryngology, breast oncology, orthopedics, um, cardiac electrophysiology, OBGYN, podiatry. Um, Wound care example I brought up earlier is interesting because there are multiple surgical specialties that perform wound care, debridement wound care surgery, from orthopedics to plastics to podiatry. Um, so there's plastic reconstructive. There's numerous call points there that are opportunities for Lamina Surgical to connect with, and that's
Yeah,
going to be one of our challenges. Is you know when we have procedures where there are multiple specialties performing those cases, to make sure that we communicate to the right channel, work with the right network, have a presence at the appropriate conferences, and you know advertise appropriately to connect with our best opportunities. It's a challenge having a platform that's so broad and has such a large market in surgery, and but I'm very excited about it, looking forward to uh, connecting with all these different surgical specialties to scale Lamina Surgical.
yeah, that's going to be the toughest part with your marketing is how do you not, how does your messaging not get lost trying to, what's the old marketing adage, you try to talk to everybody, nobody listens, and especially I'm assuming surgeries, there's probably some sort of level of hierarchy, maybe an ER surgeon is, a plastic surgeon thinks they're better than an ER surgeon or not. I'm just saying that hypothetically, but and you just have to speak to them differently or separate out that messaging. And plus the needs and the benefit, or what I refer to as those bleeding neck problems of a plastic surgeon, are probably different than somebody running an ER or an ER surgeon or somebody making those type of decisions. So it's important to be able to segment them down and run specific marketing campaigns to those kind of niches within the medical field, because it's easy to just kind of run blanket campaigns to doctors and people in the medical field, but that's, in your particular case, that's not going to do you any good. You need to be talking to the right people, in the right field at the right locations and the actual decision makers.
Yeah, so just a question for you, Jason, from your seat, where do you see companies like mine being able to have success in terms of their business to business advertising, or just reaching the right audience?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I mean, so much of B2B is relationship built, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. There's always going to be that human interaction. I mean, especially in something like a product like you're selling. A surgeon's not going to click on an ad, go to a website, maybe even watch a video, and then purchase a very expensive product that they're trusting that is going to work well and not cause damage to their clients, right? Who they care for. Obviously, because then that damages their reputation and, so on and so forth. So there's always going to need to be that human element, that demonstration, that trust building, that credibility. But with modern technology and platforms and AI and things of that nature, there is a way to expand that reach and expand that marketing exposure substantially faster than just, say, even email marketing or trade shows or conferences or picking up the phone and cold calling Zoom info or Apollo list and things like that. Um, one of the sponsors, Data Accelerator, they specialize in programmatic marketing and taking a client from, the average client might be at operating within 3 to 5% of their addressable market, using highly targeted programmatic ads and literally 50xing your exposure to your addressable market within 30 to 60 days. Because that's oftentimes the biggest problem is, and in your case, going to be one of the biggest problems is your product could be life changing, business changing for the right individual, or life changing for their patients. But the question is how do you get yourself in front of those right individuals as quickly as possible, so you're operating within 100% or 90% of that total addressable market, or they at least know about you as quickly as possible. Because that old school trade show uh, conference, dial for dollars, email type of marketing approach, you're going to stay stuck in that, 5 to 10% of your total addressable market, which is where most businesses are at now.
Yeah, and the plasma blade that I talked about earlier is in that single digit, market penetration, and yet it generates hundreds of millions of dollars for Medtronic every year.
Well, and
It
that
has a,
that's the beauty of, sorry to cut you off. That's the beauty of most B2B businesses. It's like, look, if we can go, if you can go be introduced to 50 times more of your total addressable market, you're not looking to do business with 50 times more of it, but let's go increase that market exposure to 50 times and let's see which ones are actually interested. Because B2B businesses, it's long buy cycles. There's contracts involved. There's so much involved where you need to get in front and stay in front of these individuals for often months at a time while that decision making process is coming up. Maybe somebody is needs to make a change, but their current supplier, they're under contract for the next 6 months, but they're going to start researching and evaluating and interviewing companies to possibly change contracts or change vendors or whatever the case is. But guess what? You want to get in front of that person now, 6 months ahead of time, and then you want to stay in front of that person. And this isn't a pitch for Data Accelerator, but that's where programmatic marketing really comes in. Is you can get in front of the right individuals with a sniper like rifle approach. You can get them interested, get them clicking, and then stay in front of them during those long buy cycles.
yeah, no, I'm excited about those type of tools to help a business like mine because I've been in MedTech now for over 30 years. I've essentially been involved in 21 devices that
Wow.
have been FDA cleared. Between my co-founder and I, 21 devices. I have 16. I have
But who's
14.
but who's counting, right?
I know, huh? I know.
You're like,
And so we have my co-founder and I, Jason Hagener, we have great experience in this space, and there's 16 U.S. patents for medical devices issued between us. We're both engineers by education, and so we're great operators at doing these sort of things. And I've been in this space for, like I said, over 30 years, and I've only seen one commercial ever for a medical device on TV, and it was for with Jack Nicklaus, and it was done by Stryker for a total hip system. And point is that MedTech doesn't advertise generally to the public.
hmm
And it's also hard for us to advertise to physicians. Not all physicians go to conferences. Um, the conference advertisements tend to be throwaways, and the industry publications now are almost, their weight has diminished due to, online presence. So it's actually one of the only channels for a company like mine to connect with these different verticals within surgery, because you have these different procedures I talked about: EP, breast oncology, OBGYN, the list is long. And then there's different types of hospitals, right? You have private, you have public. Then within the private and public, you have differences. You have military, you have, there's university, there's large hospital groups like HCA,
Gotcha.
Kaiser.
Research centers, those.
Yeah, so, GMOs, HMO systems. So the point is, it's very complex to actually be able to have FaceTime and the opportunity to introduce a company or product to the market. And often we rely on sales reps and sales executives and their network. And so that only goes so far as their experience and their bandwidth.
Yeah, bandwidth
Right.
especially.
And funding for how much bandwidth a company can have in terms of sales and distribution. So having some of these tools, like I know you're involved with and your sponsors involved with, are really possibly going to create a new paradigm in medtech for companies like mine. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
We
yeah.
we were talking to a company, a medical device company. Uh, it improves the way MRIs are done for without getting into details. Um, but there, it's something where a patient could possibly ask to use this device if they're getting an MRI. But to your point, their marketing or what they were looking to do was twofold. They want to market to doctors because they need the doctors' referrals to use this device. They're the primary, I guess, decision maker. They're the ones that have to prescribe it, or I forget the exact details. But then there's also the patients that this company wants they want the actual patients to know about them, so they have the branding, the name recognition, and then also to ask the doctors, like, hey, if I have a choice to use, it wasn't on MRI machines. What did it do? I forget. We've had several guests on the shows recently, but it was something where it was they wanted the marketing twofold. It was like, hey, we need specific ads to generate attention from doctors, from these specific doctors, but then we also want the branding and the name recognition directly to potential patients that have these type of issues. So it was a kind of two pieces there. And with programmatic marketing, it's something that is possible where, we can break it up and identify multiple different audiences and target those audiences in the open internet in a kind of an aggressive, I don't want to say necessarily an aggressive, but a proactive format. We're not guessing at where somebody is online. Are they going on Facebook? Are they going on TikTok? Where should we run ads? Well, guess what? Everybody's on the internet. Everybody's visiting the internet or on different websites. Let's go find them and follow them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
to your point, there'll be lots of cool stuff that we can explore here in the near future. What about and then just to piggyback on that for a quick second, the trade shows and conferences, where that's a mixed bag. Talking to people on the show, some people think like, yes, that's still the way to do it in the future to do it. Others like yourself are like, and I just had a guest on a couple of days ago where they're like, I was like, you get 5,000 people at a trade show. What are your sales guys, collecting 100 business cards? And he's like, if we're lucky, like he goes, these guys are coming back with maybe 20 or 30 business cards, 40 or 50 business cards when there's 5,000 potential. Where instead, let's go polygon and draw a specific geofence around that trade show. As long as everybody's walking in with a cell phone, we're able to find them, target them, serve them ads while they're at the show, and then follow them long after the show everywhere they go online. So now, while you spent several $1,000s sending the sales guy to the trade show to grab 25 cards with several $1,000s worth of ads, I mean, shit, we can generate 400,000 or 500,000 impressions to people that are at the show on the floor and then follow them long after. So it's lots of, cool stuff down the pipeline, or even available now, or will be available down the pipeline to you when you're ready.
Yeah, no, and I'm particularly interested in awareness to the broad surgical community in some ways that maybe they haven't seen before, but also the public. Generally, people don't know what gets used on them during surgery. And so for the public to be a little bit more aware of devices that are used for access could it could create a scenario where customers are asking for a particular device based on something they see in an ad or in a publication. And I experienced this directly during my time at ArthroCare. We pioneered wet field electrosurgery. There were some surgeries where we had to introduce a wet field or saline for the technology, and the device would ablate tissue, cut it, control bleeding. But it was in a much different embodiment that I'm working on now, and I've done did with the plasma blade. But point is it became a really strong player for doing tonsillectomies. And there was a randomized clinical trial that demonstrated that tonsillectomies done with coblation resulted in lower pain for the patients and postoperatively. And so what happened was that study was published, and somehow the New York Times got a hold of it, and it ended up there. And that article actually, I think, was a flashpoint for ArthroCare to essentially capture about 30% of the 500,000 tonsillectomies done annually in the US within 2 or 3 years. Because moms around the country saw that, and their kids, most tonsillectomies, adenoidectomies are between 5 and 15 years old. And so parents saw that and said, hey, I want that device on my child for their tonsillectomy procedure. And so I think with what we're doing and some of the things that the plasma blade is capable of doing, it's one of those things where I know personally, if I were having a large wound access, I would want the technologies that Lamina Surgical is working on used on me or my, a loved one, friend, family member, because I know there's just going to be less. And, we still need to prove this. We're in development. We're going to have to support this with data, get the device cleared with the FDA for safety and efficacy and substantial equivalence to, a predicate. But point is that from what I know about surgery, I just want, technologies that we're working on used on, people in my life, because I just know that, they're going to have less pain afterwards. They're going to, heal better and have an overall better surgical result. So that's an interesting scenario relative to, the medical device world, is just having some more patient awareness about, technologies, but not, replacing the prescription aspect of what doctors do too. There's
Yeah, no,
this
it's a
fine
multi.
line. At the end of the day, it's critical and most important for awareness for surgeons and physicians that would use this device. And if there can be some spillover or awareness to the public too, that'd be exciting from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a multi-pronged approach because there's no better marketing tool than a potential or a patient going into a doctor and saying, "Hey, have you heard about this? Have you seen this? I saw this." Now it's, what better word of mouth or referral type of source with a patient and bringing it to a doctor. I probably bet your ass that the doctor is going to go look into it or research it if they haven't heard of it yet, right? Because they
Yeah.
should be the one that knows about it first. So yes, taking that multi-pronged approach in situations like this or with a lot of these med type devices, whether it's programmatic ads or I think even like we had talked about on the pre-show, businesses don't realize how cost effective even just CTV ads are. Everybody thinks like, oh, if I want to go run a commercial, I have to spend, $10 billion or $1 million, $100,000, whatever it is, where it's like, no, look, you can go run very targeted ads to your ICP, to surgeons on streaming TV platforms for, $5,000, $10,000 a month in ad spend budget, substantially less than most people think. And, take that much more targeted approach to that individual where you're not just running ads during the Super Bowl. Hopefully a surgeon's going to see it. It's running ads only to surgeons when they're on specific streaming TV platforms, that type of stuff. So it's like I say, that sniper like rifle approach. But now, in terms of obviously, I mean, the AI and stuff, what we're talking about is we're talking about a foot in the door, an introduction, and signaling intent and educating. But where do you foresee like a sales force coming in? I mean, you're going to eventually need boots on the ground, people coming into these hospitals and doctors' offices and showing demos or, finishing the process, correct?
Yes.
You're
And
not
as
selling this on a website.
I mentioned earlier, that's the kind of the tip of the spear for commercializing and scaling medical devices. Having a network of sales representatives and distributors and sales executives to manage that process. So we will partner with people that have experience in the space with
Gotcha.
these devices through our network, through staffing or hiring. It's going to be a hybrid model between distributors and direct reps. Different specialties have different ways to engage. Orthopedics, for example, has a large distributor network out there. The strategics like Stryker and Zimmer Biomed and others that participate in total joints and orthopedics, they have their own sales forces. They also work with distributors, so they have like a hybrid model as well. So we're just going to need to tap into some of these networks, either in-house or through going to shows, connecting with different distributor networks, outreach, our own network, and it's going to be a hybrid approach. But
Yeah, and
generally,
like you talked about, it's even taking that proactive approach. So 6 months, say, before you have sales reps, boots on grounds, going to trade shows and sales conferences, you can go target and put yourself in front of, all of your direct targeted surgeons, medical professionals, decision makers at hospitals,
mhm.
and for a very cost effective approach, build a brand, build a reputation, build some trust and some authority within the space for 6 months. So that way, when that sales rep does walk into that meeting or does just cold call or walk into a hospital, the name itself, of whether it's the specific product or Lamina Surgical, they already know it. They've seen it a couple times. They've seen the brand, the logo, seen some client reviews posted online and things like that. So you know, it's a lot easier to start a conversation off when they already know who you are versus having to spend 5 minutes explaining who you are, right?
Yeah,
That's oftentimes a very tough hurdle to overcome, where with constant impression and reflection and constantly staying in front of the ICP, the ideal client profile, over and over and over again everywhere they go online, you're building that trust and authority ahead of time. Hopefully setting yourself, or setting, shouldn't say setting yourself up, but setting your sales reps up or those distributor reps up for success when they walk in the door or, connect with those, their clients.
Absolutely. And we owe that effort to our investors, because if we don't embark on that sort of, early awareness drip campaign with potential customers and hospital networks and even distributor networks, so we can get our in-house act in order, as well as who they're going to sell to in parallel. It will cause a large delay from the time we obtain FDA clearance to when we can start generating revenue and move forward as a company, because there's a cycle in all hospital systems, to essentially make a sale. It's a process of getting approval to do a evaluation or trial, and then if that goes well, there's what's called a value analysis committee, VAC committee, where the hospital needs to approve the device and the system for use, and then there's levels of use and which departments are going to have access to it. So for Lamina to go out and really just make the market aware, and potentially distributors and reps aware that what's coming, that would partner with us, or even people that already partner with us, is going to be valuable, because we don't want to have a clearance and then just be burning money with no sales, or limited level of evaluation. So it's one of those things we need to embark on early, plan for success, and we're definitely committed to doing that at Lamina Surgical.
Yeah, the goal is when the if marketing is done correctly, when the sales rep initiates that initial contact or gets that initial opportunity, ideally they should be starting on at least first base, if not second base. If the marketing's done correctly, they're aware. It's not, hey, I'm Jason from Lamina Surgical, and they're not like, hey, who the hell is that? They're like, oh yeah, I've heard of you. I've seen you're doing X, Y, and Z. I've somebody referenced this. I've seen your ads. Whatever it is, there's some warm introduction or simulation where now it's okay. Now I don't have to explain who I am. Now here's how I'm going to change your life, change your patient's life. Here's the value I'm going to add. Now we can get straight into building trust and authority, and solidifying that relationship. And it makes such a big difference in that B2B business. Are the ads going to close a door and sell your product to a surgeon? Absolutely not. But it can make a huge difference in that, especially that initial process. Wonderful. I didn't even realize we're approaching 45 minutes now. I guess time flies when you're having fun. Um, but to kind of wrap things up here, one, best of luck with everything. I can't wait to possibly be a part of the process or stay in touch with you, and uh, just stay in touch and see how things are going and be part of the process. And then we'll obviously, like a lot of the guests here, will figure out a time maybe in 6 months or 12 months from now, have you back on the show, do an update, and kind of figure out where things are going and how things are going for you. But obviously, best of luck with everything. And thank you so much for being on the show and sharing this. I don't want to say initial part, because a lot of work's been put into this far, but sharing this part of your journey, and can't wait to see where the rest of it goes.
Absolutely, Jason. Excited, and I look forward to that opportunity to share the outcomes of some of these seeds we're planting now, and ideally we could have how things are going in process when we start to implement some of these tools to connect with our market,
Yeah, absolutely. And
and then obviously the end outcome. It'd be nice to do a three-step process, and
yeah, well, if the end result's 2028, yeah, there'll be a few, several steps in that process, but it'd be cool to, possibly kind of document everything along the way. That'd be some really great content for the audience. But
yeah, and that's
before,
what, just real quick, what we did for fundraising. we shared with potential investors, how to invest in MedTech and what the details about it are. And then we gave them a case study. It was a device I had previously worked on that's very successful, and what sort of returns are possible with that case study. And then we essentially introduced them to the Lamina Surgical and the problem, the solution, the market, the competition, and what are some of the things we've done to de-risk what we're doing. And so that's the progression we've done with our investment strategy and partnering with investors. And it'd be fun to do something like that here, where look, you're talking to us when we're in the concept feasibility phase. We have prototypes. We're just going into full scale development. We're still doing some needs finding and adjusting on designs, but we're moving forward. And we're going to start implementing some of these tools to not only for our product, but to commercialize this and do business to business activities. And so it'd be neat to see how those are going real time. And then at the end, how did it all work? What the data tell us? And I'm a big, statistics person. I've had to become very strong at statistics because, when we file for clearance with the FDA, we demonstrate, how the product is going to work on a statistical level for large populations.
Mhm.
So that's, what I'm really excited about relative to AI. We're going to use data and AI very carefully relative to, not to replace people, but to enhance what we're doing with good sample sizing and addressing bias, dealing with signal to noise, and using our experience with statistics to apply these tools appropriately to make sure we win, our customers win, and the patients win. So thank you for having me on, Jason.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. I'm excited for what the future holds for just having you back as a guest on the show, but more importantly um, for the business and Lamina Surgical.
Super.
So I guess without further ado, let's sign off then. Appreciate you being here. Thanks to again, Paul, for your time. Very valuable information for the audience. Everybody's listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're on social media, follow along anywhere on social media. Thank you so much for your time. Tune in a couple of days from now again for another episode. And thanks again, Paul. And thank you again, everybody, for listening. Take care and talk soon.
You're welcome, Jason. Thanks.